So you want to sell your concept. Perhaps you've called your lawyer and you want to discuss the possibility that using a contract you might be able to make some money. Well, I'm going to walk you through 3 steps you should then be taking with a focus on adding additional value to your concept. Concepts can come in a huge variety. There can be concepts about goods, that is products, or they can be concepts about processes, such as processes used in businesses. I've come across a lot of concepts in my career. They've ranged from ideas about new packets of chips, ideas about books, such as one of the clients I represent has a book that relates to dogs. Go to winedogs.com and you'll see. The interesting thing about that example is that it's merely a concept about photographing dogs and putting them onto books or calendars or other types of printed matter and making money because people love dogs and they love wine at the same time. But perhaps my favourite concept of all time, which made money, didn't just simply be formed by an idea. It was something that involved a patent. And in a book that was published a year or so ago, Intellectual Property, there is actually a discussion of the concept, and it's the concept of the windscreen wiper, the intermittent windscreen wiper. And that invention for its maker earned well in excess of $30 million US. However, that concept is a patented one. What we're going to talk about today is concepts that don't have patents or don't have any form of intellectual property protection at the stage at which you call your lawyer. Now, for those concepts, the first thing in the 3-part stage that I'm going to walk you through is to define the concept. Defining the concept can be as simple as creating an idea around what intellectual property laws might protect it. Defining the concept, however, can begin on your own by simply doing things like writing down in a paragraph what the concept is. Because if you can't define it in a paragraph or in a sentence, better still, how do you expect to communicate it to others? Now, when it comes to you having written down your concept and now wanting to sell it to somebody else, you need to be realizing that they will always ask the question, who are you? So defining the concept is also a process in which you need to define what your role is in connection with it. Are you going to have to be involved in the delivery of the concept, or are you going to simply pitch it to somebody else and hope that they would see value and want to give you some participation or some money? So this first stage of defining the concept is really getting things down on paper. And it's not just about the product or the service, and it's not just about you, it's also about the market that you're addressing. And that may require you to talk to other people who are more familiar with the market to pitch the ideas forward. Now, fairly early on, what you want to be able to do is determine how you're going to talk to other people on a basis that involves at the same time protecting what you have. So now let's talk about the second stage of sell your concept, having defined it. So the second stage is developing the concept. To develop the concept, again, we're talking about having to do things which get your ideas down in a recorded form. Now, that might be taking the PowerPoint or the bullet points that you've written and now trying to do things in more detail. Why do you want to develop the concept? It's because people tend not to want to pay a lot of money for a bare concept. So just because you woke up one day and you had an idea, do not expect the lawyer to draft a confidential information agreement that magically, when delivered to somebody else, would be capable of turning your concepts into dollars, value, or some other type of reward. Instead, what you want to be able to do is on your own, perhaps initially, or with your lawyer, to be able to develop the concept. And so to develop the concept, again, you need to get it down in writing in some form. Now, as you develop the concept, you're going to be able to, through a lawyer that knows this field, you're going to be able to determine whether it fits into a particular category of intellectual property law. Now, there are some defined fields in intellectual property. I won't go through them all today, but obviously you will have heard of things such as patent, copyright, trademarks. Let's take those three things in order. A patent will cost in Australia anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 for the early stages for it to be registered. So you will need some real cash and some real confidence. Let's then take copyright. Copyright costs you nothing in terms of recording material. It's when you try to deal with copyright through contracts that you're going to have to expend the real money. And as far as trademarks are concerned, depending on the circumstance, you may not need to register it, but registering it's not a bad idea. So if you have developed your concept through protection under intellectual property law using patents, copyright or trademark, then clearly as a more developed idea there's going to be not only legal protection but a greater perception by the buyer that you have value. Now, if you have done that sort of work, then you can go to the third stage of sell your concept. The third stage involves putting together a proposal. Now, in some sectors that might involve a pitch, which you could do verbally. It might be supported by a PowerPoint. It might be supported by a pitch document. In a more complex situation, that pitch document might be an information memorandum. For example, if you're going to try and raise a great deal of money, for argument's sake, 100,000 to 2 million, the type of investor that might invest in something like that is going to want a proposal that is in more detail. Now, for that sort of proposal, where you are at this third stage of communicating your concept to the potential customer, at that stage you really do need to have things in the nature of graphics regarding what it is that you're offering. For example, you might indicate how the concept could move through various stages of value add if it was a product or even if it was a service. You might also have things like glossaries, meaning a description of the different components of what you have. And finally, you might have a map showing how everything is arranged within your concept, how things tie together. Let me summarize these three steps we've talked about in regards to selling your concept. So the first stage was to define the concept because you are the aspiring seller and you are seeking a customer. So for the aspiring seller to get to the capital C customer, you're going to need a bridge. And that bridge was to firstly define your concept and then secondly to develop the concept, generally with documentation of various sorts, so that you could get to the third stage, which is to in fact communicate your concept. And at any of these three stages you may need a contract. So if you need a contract, then you either have your own templates or you need to call a lawyer. And we're happy to help. So around this particular video you might see some links to some additional articles that might help you. So thank you for joining us today and have a pleasant day.